Welcome to the Foundations of Coaching online course. I'm excited that you've chosen to invest in yourself or your company has decided to develop and invest in you. Either way, the changes you're about to make will not only benefit you, but also those around you, both professionally and personally. This is a 9 lesson course set up for each lesson to ideally be completed on a weekly basis. You have 16 weeks to complete the lessons as well as the bonus video if you choose to explore the origins of this coaching. Here's how this course is laid out. Lesson 1, assessments. That's what we're getting ready to do in a minute. Lesson 2, values, strengths, and weaknesses. 3 is feedback and change. 4 is on time management. 5 on perspective, morale, and gratefulness. 6 on self-talk and mental triggers. 7, goal setting. 8, accountability. And 9 is making all these changes stick and the next steps in your learning process. Then the bonus video for foundational concepts. If you've not completed those assessments and printed out your results, please hit pause now and do that, as well as the downloads. All right, hopefully you've got everything in front of you. The 2 assessments you've completed provide a window into you. If you're a person who resists assessments because you think it's putting you in a box or labeling you, I encourage you to relax a bit and see what additional information this can give you about yourself. While these assessments are not going to perfectly describe all the nuances of who you are, I think they can provide you with some valuable insight and aspects of your personality that are worth paying attention to so that you can grow in your self-awareness, because that's what this is all about. For those who strive to lead by being a servant leader and want to be others focused, it may bother you to spend this time doing some introspection. I too desire to be as selfless as possible. I like C.S. Lewis's definition of selfless, to not think less of yourself, but to think of yourself less often. You might want to hit pause and ponder that one for a few minutes. While we strive to be others focused as we go about our jobs and personal lives, we need a degree of self-awareness in order to perform at our optimal level and truly serve others. As we'll see in lesson 2, just playing to our strengths can have negative results if we do not pay attention to when they can go bad on us. This can happen to the best of us when we're not self-aware enough to make adjustments for when a strength becomes a weakness. More about that in the next lesson. For the purposes of this course, you can become more self-aware to move forward just by taking the basic assessments and doing a cursory reading of your general characteristics. The assessments, the DISC and the Enneagram, are popular personality tests that you've probably heard of at some point. Even if you've taken these tests before, I would encourage you to reacquaint yourself with your results and dig a little deeper. That's what we're getting ready to do. These tests describe your personality and generally do not change over the course of your life. If you're a high D on the DISC or a 9 on the Enneagram at age 28, your basic personality is likely not to change as you go to age 48 and even 68. I hope your assessment results were both illuminating and motivational as you strive to be the best version of yourself. If your results were in line with what you were expecting, then congratulations. You're starting out with a moderate degree of self-awareness. If you were a bit surprised, then there's some interesting things for you to consider as you become more knowledgeable of who you are at your core and what that means in your motivations and relationships. Let's talk about what these assessments mean and what to do with the results. With the DISC, it's 4 letters. You're likely to be strongest in one of the styles. It's good to know all of the styles, though, so that you can have a better idea how to approach those in your life, both at work and in your personal time, so that you can manage those relationships best. This can be especially helpful within teams as you reduce miscommunication and increase how effectively you navigate your day-to-day living. Let's take a look at these briefly. I'm going to share my screen now, and we'll go through the 4 aspects of this style. DISC styles. The 4 letters are D, I, S, and C. D stands for dominance, I for influence, S for steadiness, and C for conscientiousness. None of these are good or bad. They just describe you. You're going to have different people in your lives with different highs and lows, and it's just good to understand not only your style and pattern, but also those of others. Let's talk about dominance to begin with. The priority of a dominant person is results. That's what drives them. They're motivated by power and competition. The basic fear of a high D is a fear of loss of control. You'll notice with a D, a very self-confident person in general. And a limitation for a D is they tend to be impatient. They can not have a genuine lack of concern about other people. That's why it's good for a D to have somebody else in their life to be able to help them to be more sympathetic and empathetic. I'm a high D and I'm married to a high S, so that helps with my compassion level. Let's take a look at influence. If you're a high I, the priority for an I is enthusiasm. You'll see them get excited, lots of energy there. They're motivated by group orientation. They want to be, where's the party? Where are they going to be? The basic fear of a high I is rejection. As we said, the social part of it is coming into play, and that's what you'll notice with a high I. A limitation for an I is impulsivity and sometimes disorganized. So that's a weakness to come into play there. That's why high I's can certainly serve a team as far as the enthusiasm. This is your cheerleaders on your team and as far as organizing group activities, but they may need a little help from some of the other styles as well. The S, steadiness. The priority for the S is support, looking for who that he or she can help out with. An S is motivated by cooperation and being a helper. The basic fear of a high S is of change or potentially being offensive to somebody. And you'll notice that with a high S, someone who's very patient and a good listener. They've got lots of people around them that tend to be more talkative than they are. And the limitation for a high S is they can be overly accommodating. They have to be careful that their boundaries are up and they're not being taken advantage of or somebody just railroading things along the way. All right, high C, conscientiousness. Priority for a high C is accuracy. They're very detail oriented. They're motivated by being an expert and they're wanting quality to be tip top. The fear for a high C is criticism, whether constructive or not. They want to be perfect and they want to make sure they're catching mistakes and correcting them before somebody else notices it. You'll notice with a high C, somebody who's very precise and analytical, and a limitation for a high C would be being overly critical, not only of themselves, but of other people around them as well. Now, disc combinations, as you might have gotten from your results, if you have two letters that are above the midline, those are meaningful. One's going to tend to be a little higher than the other, but to have two above the midline together, it's of interest to you and good knowledge for you to have on what that means as you go through that. If you're a high D and a high I, at the top of your graph here between the high I and high D, put the word action. Basically, you're fast-paced, assertive, dynamic. These are your extroverts. If you're on the top part of the disc, the D and the I are your extroverts. If you're a high I and a high S, down the right-hand side of your chart, the blank between those two letters, put the word collaboration. You tend to be very empathizing, receptive, and agreeable, very people-focused if you're a high I and a high S. If you're a high S and a high C on the bottom part, that bottom blank at the bottom of your page there is the word stability. Basically, you're very thoughtful, calm, and careful, and these are your introverts. If you're below on the bottom part of that chart, your S's and C's tend to be introverted. And then if you're a high D and a high C, which is me, the word to put on the left side of your chart is challenging. On that, you're logic-focused, questioning, and skeptical. So those are your combinations. If you've got two that are above your midline, that's worth paying attention to. Knowing your next highest letter, it would be wise for you to invest some time to figure out exactly what that means. Now, as far as combinations and patterns, you don't have this as a handout, but I just wanted to show this to you. If you tend to be high in any one of the patterns, or the styles, and your other three letters are below the midline, then you would be descriptors of 1 through 4 on this chart. So if you're a high D with everything else below the midline, you're considered a developer. And there's lots more to read on this as well. If you're pattern is a high I and everything else below the midline, you're considered a persuader. A high S would be a specialist, and the high C would be an objective thinker. And then you've got other patterns where 2 are above the midline. I've given you 10 of these. There's more that you can look through. That Enneagram, there's lots of disc type of things that you can look at online that will describe it. The one I look at is the 8. That describes me. I'm a higher D than I am a C, but that U-shaped is a descriptor of me, and that would be considered a creative. So I've done quite a bit of reading on that. But just another thing to be aware of to increase your self-awareness so that you can understand yourself. And then as you get to know the people on your team, another thing to know about how you work together. So I misspoke a second ago and mentioned the Enneagram. But before we get to that, if you'd like to dig deeper on the DISC, be aware that there is a much more thorough version of that assessment that I can give you. I'm certified to do the DISC assessment. On the one-on-one tab on my website, you can click on there and scroll down, and that's one of the options is a one-on-one session where I would send you the assessment. You would take it online. It takes 15 or 20 minutes, and then you would submit it. I would then send you the results, multiple pages of what would be describing you at your best, at your worst, how you work with other people. And we would spend about an hour together going over those results. That is something that I think would be worth your time because that test is much more thorough. And that's something that we can do in person if you're in the Memphis area. If you're in other parts of the country, we can easily go on a Zoom session and do a video conference, or we could even do a phone discussion as we go over those results as well. Now let's discuss the Enneagram assessment. The Enneagram is a personality diagnostic tool of our emotional outlook on life. The origins of this are a bit murky, with some dating back the basic idea even to pre-Christ. What we do know for sure is that it became more popular in the 1970s with different people starting to write on it, and it's picked up some considerable steam in the last few years. It defines 9 personality styles in a circle. While your basic personality does not change, we fluctuate constantly among healthy, average, and unhealthy traits that make up our personality style. I've included it in this because I think this is extremely interesting on making you aware of when you're in an unhealthy situation and that you've got a choice. We'll talk about that in just a second. If you'll pull out your Enneagram style sheet, I will share this page and we'll discuss that now. All right, Enneagram types. As I mentioned, you should have this sheet in front of you. Let's take a look at type 1. Type 1 is the reformer, rational, idealistic, principled, purposeful, self-controlled, and perfectionistic. And you've got a blank down there on the lie that the type 1 tends to believe. It believes that it's not okay to make mistakes. So something definitely to be aware of if you're a type 1 is that you have perfectionistic tendencies. And there are going to be times when you're going to need to give yourself some grace there because guess what? You're not perfect. I know this one well because I'm a type 1. Type 2 is the helper. Caring, generous, demonstrative, people-pleasing, and possessive. Similar to the DISC, there's none of these that are good or bad. This is just descriptors of you. So the more you know about this, the more you can be aware of the positives and negatives of your individual type and to be aware of that when it's going bad on you. The type 2 person, the helper, tends to believe the lie that it's not okay to have my own needs met. Type 2s take care of everybody else and don't really pay attention to those around them. I'm married to a 2, so that's good for me to know that I need to make sure she's taking care of herself because that can be a tendency of hers. If you're a type 3, the achiever. Achievers are success-oriented, pragmatic, adaptable, excelling, driven, and image conscious. They tend to believe the lie that it's not okay to lose or to have my own identity. That's something certainly be aware of because we're going to all lose at different times, and we should know what our identity is and and where that's founded, because certainly that is a motivator for all of us. If it's not in the right place, it certainly can not work for you at times. A type 4 is the individualist. This is a person who is sensitive, withdrawn, expressive, dramatic, self-absorbed, and can be temperamental. The individualist believes the lie that it's not safe to feel too happy or functional. They're constantly wondering things need to be not totally all right for them to feel all right. They kind of embrace imbalance in their life. And if things are going too well, it's like they're a little concerned, and when's the other shoe going to drop? The type 5 is the investigator. This person is intense, cerebral, perceptive, innovative, secretive, and isolated. A lot of engineers are an investigator, some accountants as well. They tend to believe the lie that it's not okay to be comfortable in the world. They want to tweak it, got to make it better. These folks can certainly be very helpful on a team, and a definite, you don't want too many of them, but you definitely want them there. Type 6 is the loyalist. This person is committed, security-oriented, engaging, responsible, anxious, and suspicious. They're in their heads a lot. They tend to overthink at times and can have some fears that creep up that sometimes are not very rational. They believe the lie that it's not okay to trust yourself. There are times when a 6 needs to be encouraged to just go with it, go for it, and let them deal with you. Be who you are and don't worry about what other people are thinking. The type 7 is the enthusiast. Busy, fun-loving, spontaneous, versatile, acquisitive, and scattered. They're the life of the party. They tend to believe the lie that no one will be there for me when I need support. They need encouragement by those around them and reassurance that you're going to be there, that they're not going to be abandoned. I would encourage you, if you have 7s in your life, to enjoy them, because they certainly liven up the party, but also to realize that they do need some reassurance from time to time as well. The type 8 is the challenger. Powerful, dominating, self-confident, decisive, willful, and confrontational. The lie that they tend to believe is that it's not okay to be vulnerable or trust anyone. These folks can certainly make things happen. A good defense is a great offense. They've got their guards up and aren't letting you get too close. They need to be encouraged to open up a bit and let people in to get to know them. And then finally, the type 9 is the peacemaker. Easygoing, self-effacing, receptive, reassuring, complacent, and resigned. And they believe the lie that it's not okay to assert myself. 9s need to be encouraged to speak up, let their voice be heard. If you've got 9s on your team or in your family, you're better off if you hear from them. So encourage them to speak up and not hold back what they've got to offer. But they're going to need some encouragement in order to be able to do that. Let's hold off talking on that slide, but for a second, let me talk about wings. You're, as I said, and you see in the circle, they're going around in a circle. You tend to lean one way or another on either side of your number. So for instance, if you're a 1, you tend to have either a wing 2 or a wing 9, one direction or another. A few people are evenly weighted, but the majority of us tend to lean one direction or another. Look at the descriptors of the numbers on either side of your number and see which one best describes you, and then investigate that more, because you'll see that coming out in you. There'll be some tendencies from that. It's interesting with married couples, many times they are 2 numbers that are together, but they lean the opposite direction. As I said, I'm a 1, my wife is a 2. She's a 2 wing 3, and I am a 1 wing 9. So we're leaning the opposite directions, but we are right there next to each other, and we work pretty well as a result. Now let's talk about disintegration and integration. You have a tendency, depending on what number you are, to go across the circle when you're to another number and take on the negative characteristics when under stress. So for instance, the 1, as you can see, the arrow points down to the 4. So I have to be aware that when I'm in a stressful situation, that I don't pick up the negative qualities of the individualist, which I can become self-absorbed, temperamental. Therefore, with that knowledge, I know if I find myself starting to get moody, starting to get defensive, that should send off some bells and whistles for me to wait a minute, time out. I've got a choice here. I can stop and think about what's going on and pull back more toward the back to the one, which is me in my natural state, to enjoy the positives of being a one and being fully embracing that, and make sure that my four is not going negative on me. Like the two tends to go across to the negative sides of the eight. So it would be interesting for you to study the negative aspects of the arrow that your number is pointing to, and then be aware of that when you're in a stressful situation, to not let it go bad on you. Conversely, integration in times of growth, when you're extremely healthy, not only are you an average back at your number, but you're going across. In my case, I'd be going toward the seven. The one points to the seven. And so whenever I'm easygoing, more happy-go-lucky, go with the flow, then in that moment, that realization lets me know I'm in a good place right now, because I'm not camping out on the negative aspects, not only of the four, but also of the one. I'm not being too perfectionistic. I'm going with the flow. And so that's an encouragement for me to continue in that situation. It'd be interesting to for you, when you do more self-analysis, to see if there's a correlation of the people that you're around when you're in these situations. When you're in a growth setting, or do you tend to be around the same kind of people? Those are probably some of the people you want to camp out with. You want to spend more time with them, because they're bringing the growth side, the healthy side. They're encouraging good things out of you. If you find yourself, when you're stressed, around the same type of people, that might be a bit of a red flag. They may be in your family or on your team, and you're forced to be with them. If you've got a choice, make that choice. And limit your interactions with them. But if you're getting ready to be with them and you know that, that's something to be self-aware about going into that situation, so that you're not just caught off guard. You're anticipating that this may be a time when I'm going to have to self-manage myself. So that's, as I said, that's why I like this a lot, because it helps with your self-awareness on how to manage yourself, and also anticipate how you're going to respond and act when you're around some other people. You can dive deeper in this at the Enneagram Institute's website. I think I'll include that as a link for you, which will help you delve into the different centers and instincts and go at a much deeper level than what we've gone over here. For some of you, this may be enough, but others, you may want to dig deeper. There are podcasts and websites and books that have been written on this that have a lot of fascinating information, but I wanted to at least introduce this to you, to at least help you move forward in your self-awareness. If some of the results were surprising to you, I would encourage you to ask a few people close to you to see if they agree with your results. If they don't agree as well, I would encourage you to consider what your mental state of mind was when you took these assessments, because that can impact the results that you get. If you were stressed out or in a not in a good frame of mind when you took these originally, go back and take them again and see if your results come up a little bit different. That might be a good thing, and then see if you're, as a result, be able to know better about who you are and how to manage yourself in the process. Let me talk for a minute about getting input. I mentioned asking other people their input and their opinion on your results. Some people are hesitant to ask for feedback. They think it makes them appear weak or that something's wrong. Actually, it's just the opposite. If a friend or coworker asked you for some feedback, what would go through your mind? You'd probably wonder why and ask a few more questions. And when you realize that that person was taking a course to become more effective, you'll likely be impressed and want to help. Your respect for them will grow. When you ask others for input, you're honoring them as a valued person in your life, which should motivate them to want to help. Many people will want to explore self-improvement for themselves as well when they hear that you're taking this course. So be sure and let them in on the secret on how to get signed up. You know, if others in your family or on your team express an interest in taking assessments as well, feel free to share the links with them, but also about the details of this course. There's tremendous benefit in groups taking these tests and growing in their self-knowledge together. There will be more understanding and less miscommunication as a result. There's a wealth of information on the internet that goes into the background of each test if you want to dig in even deeper. I've included some of those so that you can gain better understanding. Those links are available to you back where you downloaded the assessment. So there's an additional assessment that I do for my one-on-one clients. When I do coach people one-on-one, the DISC assessment, the thorough DISC assessment is included, as well as this emotional intelligence test that I have you take online. It's the EQI 2.0. I'm certified to deliver that as well. And it's a very thorough test, many pages that describe you and gives us an opportunity to be able to dig in to some areas that will help you understand yourself and manage your emotions, as well as respond to the emotions in other people. It looks at how you perceive and express yourself and how you develop social relationships and cope with challenges in an effective way. It can give you a great read on areas that need some attention. There's some rudimentary free versions of this online, but I found that they're not worth much because they don't dig very deep and there's no one to go through it with you. After completing this course, you'd like to explore the emotional intelligence side with me, just order that on the one-on-one tab. I'll have you take a 15 to 20-minute test online and then send you the results, and we'll spend about an hour either on the phone if you're in this area in person, or we can do that via teleconference on Zoom. Once again, if you decide to do the one-on-one coaching, that thorough DISC assessment as well as the EQI is included in that. I encourage you also to start a file on yourself and begin to accumulate as much information about yourself as you can. Print out your assessment results and keep them in this file for future reference. Okay, for homework for the next week, continue to look at your assessments, study more. If you want to do more reading, do that as well. Then also download and print out the sheets that I've included with lesson 2 that will and have those available for us to go through in our next session. There's a values exercise, a strengths and weaknesses sheet, and an action plan for you to print out, and we'll work on those in lesson 2. Lastly, I would encourage you to get a spiral notebook or something similar to serve as a journal as you go through this course. Jotting down your thoughts and what's going through your mind along the way will be a great future reference for you as you go forward and make positive changes in your professional and personal life. My desire for you is to make the positive changes stick, and your journal can be a great reminder when you're seeking to build upon this foundation. Have a good week, and I'll see you in lesson 2.